to Crux Fibres knitting podcast, where I get up to all sorts of wonderful crafting things. My name is Brittany, if this is your first time tuning in, and I am here in Whitehorse, Yukon of Northwest Canada. This is episode 3. I almost said 4, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. And I'm not sure what to title it. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, welcome to this side of my world, and I thought I would begin by sharing the hope that I have for our world, and the things that I've been learning regarding grace for individuals, grace for nations, just in general, I guess. A hope. I just have hope, and I'm holding on to that. Life is hard right now, and I know that. And I wanted to share a little something from a book before we begin. This is a book of prayers and meditations. It's called To Bless the Space Between Us by John O'Donohue. There's lots of ones I could have chosen, but I went with this one because I thought it was inspiring. For a new beginning, in, out of the way, places of the heart where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the light, when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. And that's poetry for you. I'm not going to elaborate, not going to explain. I'm just going to share those words and hope they mean something to you. So yes, welcome again. I will start with what I'm wearing. This is my Felix pullover, and I knit this a few years ago. Sorry, I keep looking at myself and I need to look at the little dot. But anyway, so I knit this a few years ago, and I chose this yarn here, which is by Fibre Forge. It's a special yarn. It comes right from the flock in BC, and the sheep was called Aubrey, and she's a Shetland Gotland cross. It was an Aran weight yarn. I think I had like 4 or 5 skeins of yarn. Yeah, grown in BC, spun in Alberta at Rosebud Fibre Mills. So yeah, I generally always use the needles called for in the pattern unless for some reason the gauge is really off, but this is a really lovely, lovely yarn. It's semi-worsted spun. There's pilling going on, but that's not something you can't quickly glean and take care of. And this is the natural color. And I love this sweater so much. It's by Amy Christoffers. Everyone stumbles on that word, on her last name, Amy Christoffers. And yes, so there's this eyelet raglan increasing, and I knit the body spout at my hips, and it's a boxy shape, which is what I enjoy on myself to wear. I believe it's a 3-ply spun yarn, and it's cozy. I jump into it a lot, especially when I'm not feeling like wanting to wear color or whichever. So that's what I'm wearing, and I'm wearing also a finished object. So you've probably seen this from episode 1. This is my throwing it back stole. It turned into a stole by Cozy Up Knits, and it is, I'm not going to take it off because I'm cozy. I could take it off, but it was a really wonderful knit. I encourage you to check out the hashtag Throwing It Back Mkal, I think it was. There's a lot of wonderful finished objects that people have shared, and I chose this copper color by Les Belles Bouclettes in Van Cleek, Ontario. They have a lot of Angora goats, and they have their own mohair, and this is a blend of wool, mohair, silk. It's a 2-ply. It's really shiny. It's a lovely copper color. I just adore it. I actually had 3 skeins, but I only used 2. I had originally had a plan for this yarn for something else, but this just seemed to really fit it well. It's pretty drapey. A lot of people have knit this stole. There's a lot more structure because of the yarn type that they chose, but I chose this because I wanted it to be drapey and flowy, and as you can see, a stole can be worn well, not as you can see, but I'm wearing it wrapped around a few times, and then I have it tied right here. So really it's just a nice long scarf. And there was a section in the pattern which you could finish. There's a wedge in it. You could finish your own, sort of choose your own adventure. The contrasting colors I chose were Purl Soho, and I've mentioned them in the previous episodes, which have a lot more structure than this one. There's a completely different fiber type. The Purl Soho linen quill has Highland wool, alpaca, and linen. So there's a lot more, they're both drapey yarns, but this one has a lot more structure and a tighter twist. So I'm showing you backwards. So this was the beginning, I believe, I think. And this beautiful little fans. I love it. They were really fun. And then you got the classic Cozy Up Knit striping and micro striping with some nice lacy details. I think I was actually showing you backwards. But anyways, this was my wedge. I just chose to continue on the striping. I saw other people incorporate more of the stitch patterns from like the little eyeballs they called. But some people incorporated those into the little wedge. Or maybe I did show you the right way. I don't remember. But anyways, these arches were really fun to knit. I think Cozy Up Knits were concerned that people would get discouraged because it's a lot of back and forth knitting and then like purling rows. But they really are pretty. And you had to pay attention. There was no chart. I think that's why a lot of people couldn't or would struggle maybe. I don't know. I think I didn't struggle. I get used to it with switching from chart to written. So yeah, it's pretty big, and I love to be able to wrap it around. So the little eyeballs, these little stitches. So it's called, sorry, I should finish that thought. The little eyeballs stitch that they called them are also featured in the Katie shawl that they've designed. So it's a really fun stitch, and they just have a cute little detail. So yeah, that is my stole. I love it. I've worn it lots, and I'll keep wearing it. I think it's definitely something I'll keep forever because it's my kind of colors. Yeah. So that's the Throwing It Back. It was the mystery knit along from January through till February. Yeah. I also finished, last episode I showed you guys another shawl that I was working on with my beloved Nutiden yarn in the colorway Glimt, and this pattern is really fun. I love this shawl construction. You start at one tip over here, and you increase on one side the whole way until there where you bind off along here. So this is the Homestead Shawl by Melody Hoffman, and I did not gauge swatch. I never do in shawls unless I'm concerned about yardage. And I held 2 strands of Nutiden double. How do I want to, there we go. 2 strands double. And this pattern features some extra large eyelet rows. There's lots of garter stitching. So I think what I really loved just about this knit was how much I could just coast along, and it is a slower knit because I'm using the unspun Nutiden yarn, but you get used to it, and as you are working with unspun yarn, with the way that you knit, you naturally add a slight twist. So when people are a bit nervous about knitting with unspun yarn, just remember you're naturally adding a twist. And sometimes when you're knitting with yarns that already have twists, depending on how you knit, you can actually unply your yarn as well. So, drinking my black coffee. So yeah, this has been really, really cozy. I've worn it a lot as well. Depending on what the temperature is like here in the Yukon, I'll either go out with a nice shawl and tuck it in my jacket and squish it up, or I'll put my new stole around, or my hand spun cowls. I love to have some options. I think everyone else does as well. So this is super lovely. My friend Loretta introduced me to the pattern. She knit one as well, and I just loved how big and cozy it is, especially with this light yarn. I forget how much. Oh, what did I think I weighed it, and it was under 300 grams of the unspun wool. And I'll show it up close so you can see some of the colors in there. It's a neutral, but it has some very light tones that are heathered. And I just realized there is a giveaway. And I'm not looking in the right spot of the camera. There was a giveaway that we spoke about at the end of last episode. I did draw a winner, and I would love to share with you their what they wanted to say about why they love wool before I carry on with my finished objects, because I do have a fair few, so stay tuned, please. So what I chose for my giveaway is my own hand-dyed yarn. So there we go. This is Love Story, and this, I can't remember what these ones are called. I pulled them from my shelves and they weren't labeled. So the winner of this lovely prize is Heather Grant, and they wrote, "I love wool because of the feel of it between my fingers. It's a warmth beyond temperature. It's a connection to history, to the land, to life. The act of working with wool and creating things with it is grounding and peaceful. It's my stress relief that I can bring almost everywhere with me." So I really love what she wrote. So Heather Grant, please send me a message on Instagram. That's where you can find me if you're just tuning in. I'm new to podcasting. I kind of forget about the handles. Okay, so Heather Grant, you can message me on Instagram at Crux Fibres. You can go to my website, cruxfibres.com, and you can message me there as well. Or here on the podcast, you can message me as well. We can get in touch and I can get you your prize. So thank you everyone who participated in my giveaway. Some of, or all of your wonderful comments were just, they're personal and truthful, and I loved that because we all have our preferences with wool, whether they're treated or untreated. Some of us can't knit with pure wool, some of us have to knit with acrylic, and that's fine. So I did say, what do you love about wool? But I think everyone heard behind my heart just really, why do you love your craft? So thank you for that. I will carry on. So I do have 2 more. I'm looking around. Actually, yes, I have maybe 5 more finished objects, but we will run through them. I did actually knit 2 hats. So in the last month, in about a month, I knit through quite a bit of things. I usually have lots of ideas and things that just need to get done, and I love to knit. I knit all the time. I'm never not knitting. So I shared this yarn before, I think in the last episode by the Small Bird Workshop. This is Catherine's milled yarn that's 100% Canadian, so from different from BC, Ontario, and Saskatchewan, but it's spun at Wellington Fibre Mills, I believe, in Ontario. So this is 60% Romney, 25% Targhee, and 15% Kid Mohair from, I think, Twin Oaks Farm. And I knit John, my husband, this hat, which is a 1x1 ribbed hat, pretty classic kind of construction. Look at that fun crown. I cast it on 120 stitches. This pattern, I believe it's kind of big. I did not do the size that John's head would be. I did the size smaller. So the 120 stitch cast on with the needles recommended gave this yarn a really nice gauge. And you guys, if Catherine still has this yarn in her shop, I highly recommend you get it. Some people are afraid of Romney because they think it's a bit toothy, but with this Targhee and a bit of mohair, like, you could knit socks with this. John is a carpenter, he works hard, and this hat is doing pretty good, and smells like the job site. And he loves it. He says it's really warm and cozy, so I knit that. The second one was actually some hand spun yarn that I knit, and you can check out some photos on my Instagram account. I did post about it. I had a fleece given to me from Sierra from Crocus Country, Shepherdess. She wanted me to see what I thought about the fiber, and I loved it. It's a Dorset cross sheep with Gotland BFL, with sort of the bloodlines in her flock. And so I spun it on the Friday, brought it with me away to the weekend, and knit it into this hat. And I sent it off to her so that she could be cozied up in her rose, the sheep rose. So that's hat. I knit a cowl. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'll take a sip of coffee. So I am a hand spinner, and I do process my own fleeces, and I love to test knit for my friends. So this squishy cowl, it's called, was designed by Hand Knit By Kam, and she features Latvian braids and 2-color brioche. This was supposed to be a darker color, but I kept it light because I just wanted something different. I could have reversed the colors so that you could see the pops of the one hand spun in there. But you could also wear this reversed. Why not? So the Latvian braids on the other side is just, you can see floats. So Latvian braids are literally just the purl stitches on the front, and you're twisting your yarns around each other. And they get all twisted up, and then when you work your way back or do your next row, you untwist them. So you can see this hand spun I've showed on the podcast. It's the Tansy Twins. The Tansy Twins. And I blended it with some tiny bit of Wensleydale because it was a nice yellow color, and some Tussa silk, some mohair, and I used that to test knit this squishy cowl, and it's squishy. Oh, is it ever squishy? Maybe I should put this hat on too. John's hat. All the cozy. So it's squishy, it doesn't hug your neck too tight, but I think what I really love about this is, so when I go out walking, I don't like it when a cowl just keeps falling in front of me when it's cold and windy. So if I'm going to wear a cowl for the purpose of keeping me warm up here, this one's really nice for that because it just stays up. So the brioche has the structure that keeps it in, and then the extra warmth because of how brioche fabric works with all the squishiness. Very technical here. Yeah, so I test knit this, and Cam released it a few days ago, so I believe you can visit her Instagram, or I don't remember if she's got a coupon code or not, but I never use coupon codes for designers' patterns. I think they deserve every dollar for all of the amount of effort and energy and tech editing facilitating with test knitters. It's a lot of work, and I don't think it gets credited enough, so I never use coupon codes. Yeah, so this is the reverse side, and I chose to have it black, the dark gray on the outside. I like neutral. And you can see the pops of color in person, so on the camera it's a little different. So there you go. My final finished objects that I'll show you are socks. Okay, so I believe the first episode, possibly last episode, I showed these socks. They are in Nutiden yarn again, and I held the strands double, and it's just a plain vanilla sock, but I did choose some texture on the top of the foot that is from a pattern by Autumn Poppy Designs, some little pearl bumps. So these are still kind of damp because they've been taking a while to dry on my floor. But we've got these two socks, and you can see how they just are a bit different in color because of how I oriented the colors. And also a lot of these were the Lucky Charms, which are like the mill ends, or when they're switching colors. So even though I started with the same color, it was a transition. So these are so cozy and warm. I did not reinforce the heels or toes with this yarn. These are, I've worn them in my boots and they're fine. I'm very happy if they felt in the toes and the heels or in areas of the foot. And if I'm concerned, I might just throw them in a wash for a little bit because they are oversized. I used 2.25 millimeter needles, 64 toe up, 64 stitches. After the heel, somehow on the first one I increased to 68 stitches, and I don't know, I can't remember if that was intentional or not. Because I started knitting these last year. They were my car project. So these are squishy. I mean, my feet are always cold. It doesn't matter what kind of wool I use. My feet are always cold unless I start experimenting with some alpaca. These are lovely. I love them. And last episode, I spoke about the Drea Renan Knits Spin It to Knit It Cowl. Spin It to Knit It Make Along? Yeah. And the idea was to knit her DRK everyday socks. So last episode I showed this hand spun yarn I was working on. I think I only had like a little bit of a bobbin full. And then I thought, I need to get on this. I need to finish this. So I did 3-ply fractal spin. For those who don't spin, all that means is that it's distribution of your color. So I had a braid of fiber, which is a BFL mohair. And I distributed the braid into sections so that when they're spun, you're getting striping and fading at the same time. And so with the toes, I had some leftover yarn on my bobbins, and I did what's called a chain ply, which is essentially really long crochet chains from end to end of the rest that was on my bobbin. And what that does with color is creates self-striping. So that's why the toes are really fun. And you can see some really lovely here, there we go. Some really lovely marling, so you can see the striping but fading at the same time. I did not get a whole lot of yardage out of this. I could have pre-drafted my fiber a bit better, but you know what? I had enough yarn for a pair of nice thick socks, and I've worn these several days in a row because wool is amazing like that. And they're great. They're holding up. They're BFL mohair. I did not reinforce the heels and toes. And they're just those socks that I'm proud of. And I've got some leftovers that I can darn if need be. So we knit because we love to knit. If I need more socks, I'll knit more socks. So Andrea Mowry wanted to continue on the make along because why not? So I did a shop update for Crux Fibres, my business, and the shop update was featuring fibers. So I blended bats for sock spinning, and also some other bats for spinning for hats, for mitts, for whichever. and it went really well, and I kept, I wanted to showcase the sock blend that I made, which, I'm just going to look at my little notes here, make sure I didn't miss anything. My sock bats included Icelandic wool from BC, from my friend Melly, some Cormo, which is a really nice, soft, really bouncy yarn fiber, some merino silk, and the pops of color in these socks are sari silk. There's Navajo churro from Lone Sequoia Ranch. These are also still wet. Jacob Shetland cross. This is from the sheep Alfie from Lone Sequoia Ranch's flock as well. And there's some Dorset in there, also from Lone Sequoia. So that was a bat that I blended and spun this a 3-ply. It's about a sport weight. I still have a good amount of yardage so that I could use for repairing or using it in another sock, because I have another sock bat of my blend that I could spin up as well eventually. It's all prepped, ready to go. So I love these. Oh, and I should mention from the last sock in these socks, the heel is actually called a Flegel heel. So these, I love toe up. I only ever really knit toe up, and I'll only knit cuff down if I'm doing a test knit. So the toe, this is a rounded toe. You do I forget the type of cast on, but it's like a Judy's Magic cast on, but not quite. Similar idea. And I did 14 stitches, and then I increased to 60 stitches. And then you knit until a certain length on your foot, and then you begin increases on either side of one needle. I used my 9-inch circulars, but I had stitch markers, so on the inside of the stitch markers I was increasing, and you increase until you reach, for my case I reached 58 stitches. And then, much like in the heel flap and gusset, you knit across to a certain amount of stitches, so that you have, for this instance, I knit across until I had 5 stitches in the middle, and then you start doing short rows back and forth until you reach back until you have 2 stitches on either side of your stitch markers, and then the next few rows you are decreasing those last 2 stitches back to your 60 stitch original stitch count, and then you carry on. And then I did a 2x2 ribbing. So these are so cozy. I'm so excited to see how these are going to wear. I specifically did the blend because I've been inspired by other fiber artists, and I really wanted to test out this type of blend of blending Icelandic with other known for hardy yarns or fibers. And I wanted some stretch. I wanted to have some good yardage in the spin, so that's why I chose the Cormo and a bit of merino. Yeah, so they're still a little bit damp because I blocked them just a few days ago, or yesterday. Yeah, so if you haven't heard of the Flegel heel, I definitely recommend it if you like the heel flap and gusset, but you don't like having to pick up stitches, and you like knitting toe up. Flegel heel. So yeah, this is awesome. I love it. I think I have one more sock bat in my shop right now. It's called You Could Be Brown. No. You Could Be Hurtful or You Could Be Purple. And it's from a song that got floated around on social medias. Well, those are my finished objects, and odds are going forward, if I'm doing an episode once a month, there will always be many finished objects, and I'm happy to speak about them. And if you have any other questions about them, please drop your comments below. I'm happy to share any details I may have forgotten. I did write notes, you guys. It's amazing. And I do have some works in progress, and not a ton, so don't be overwhelmed. It's all good. It's all good. Go through the minutes. Yeah. Here we are. Flegel heel. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I like Fish Lips Kiss as well. But that Flegel heel, I just love the look of like that gusset, and it's a little more customizable. So it's just a heel that I could yeah, throw into anything. Unless it's not self-striping. That's a different story. But anyways. So moving on, I would love to show you some works in progress. If you'd like to make a guess, socks are still on my needles. And I'm going to kind of also highlight a little something here. I've not been asked to, or I've been lightly requested to share my feedback on this. And this is the twister. You may have seen this on the Knitting Traditions podcast or floating around on social medias. And it is a really fun tool to use for putting your balls of yarn on. And I right now have it hung up on this little side table here, so I can sit here and knit on some socks. So I'm just doing a plain vanilla sock in some Mondeem yarn in the colorway Heathered Rust, I believe. And I found this at, let's just see here. Where did I find this? Farm to Cable Yarns in Canada. I believe they're in Ontario. Farm to Cable Yarns. This is a Portuguese wool. It's my first time knitting with it. It is, let's see, what's this construction? I think it's like a 3-ply. Portuguese wool. I don't know what the sheep breeds are. They feel fairly, they remind me a bit of like a down breed, so like Dorset Cheviot even, but a bit softer. And it's heathered, meaning the natural wool color, the natural wool color has like some gray in it. So this color comes out warm, but also a little with, you see the dark heatheriness. So yeah, I was walking and knitting with my twister. And my friend Heather and I have decided to do 100 days of yarn walking. And we put it out on Instagram if anyone else wants to join us. Hashtag 100 days of yarn walking. All are welcome. If walking doesn't float your boat, maybe a stationary bike or stationary stairs. I don't know. The idea is to get out and move and be reflective, thoughtful, move your body. Because when things are tough in the world, sometimes we just want to revert into our shells. Get out, walk, knit. Don't ride a bike outside. Please don't. There were some other ideas. I can't remember what they were, but the main ones that stuck out were like, there's still parts in the world that are cold, and walking and knitting is not really something that's enjoyable. So I'll figure out ways to walk and knit every day. I might have to go check on yarn in the garage later on that I've dyed and walk and knit in there, or walk and knit around the house. I don't know. Or maybe, yeah, I'll figure it out. Or go to the Canada Game Center and walk there. I'm not sure. I'm not strict. If I miss a day, I miss a day. But if you would like to join, please do. And show us how you are walking. The other ideas of walking with your knits, another pair of socks, is with like a bag like this. This came from Her Leather Co. And you guessed it, another sock with eventually a Flegel heel. But this is an experiment, okay? So one of the questions I had on my Instagram that I put out there, I was asking if anyone had any questions for my podcast. They said, would you recommend knitting mohair in toes and heels of socks? And, well, of course I'd recommend it. I think the reason why I love it, this kind of silk mohair, kid silk mohair, is because it's extra warm. I like that. But also, it does add some durability, especially with that fuzzy mohair. And so I'm using my own hand-dyed mohair, double with this yarn here, which comes from the Small Bird Workshop. Catherine mentioned on her podcast, she has an actual audio podcast, that this Cormo yarn that she has, it's a 2-ply, has a really high twist. Let me see if you can see that. It's a really high twist at about a 50-degree angle. Now, look at this stretch, this bounce. This has a lot of elasticity. This 100 gram, I think it was 100 gram or maybe 110 grams, had 520 yards. Cormo is quite an amazing yarn. 520 yards for fingering weight. 2-ply, that's pretty good. Possibly because it's a 2-ply. If it was higher ply, it would be less yardage because the twist takes up some of that yardage. But she said she wanted to knit socks up in this yarn because of how high the twist is. So the higher the twist, the less surface per, not per inch, but the less each fiber has contact with your shoes, the floor. So the higher the twist, the less contact each fiber has. So theoretically, this should be a decent sock for durability. So I'm going to test it out and mainly stay at home working, and I have kids here too, so it's not like I'm going and trashing up these socks, but it'll take a while to really review this. But I actually have 2 casted on. I just I got tired of doing the magic loop, so I just put them on 2, and I think I'll carry on with 1 and do the next one. And this time I've got stitch markers to mark my progress. So that's the other sock. And then my final whip, I just wanted to double check on those socks. The colorway of that, the Cormo yarn was Dark Matter from the Small Bird Workshop in Nanaimo, BC. She's lovely. You gotta check out her shop. She gets farm yarn spun in Canada, also in the US. She gets fiber for spinning, blended in the UK, I think. Beautiful yarns, beautiful fibers. My final work in progress is a little make-along I'm doing with my friend Paula from Autumn Poppy Designs. And I am using a yarn acquisition I got after the last time I podcasted, I believe. It might have been before. I just may not have shown it. So this is the Ginny cardigan, and I've split for sleeves. This is a magical color, believe me, you guys. Let me show you the cone I have. Oh man, months ago I came across this mill in Scotland that has cones. This is called Smolder. You're probably seeing a lot of that red, but I'm going to get in closer so you can see the other colors there. It's called Smolder, and it is, I think, a pretty perfect name for this cone. So J.C. Rennie is the mill in Scotland, and this is called a greasy cone. It smells like spinning oil, which I was looking on the website to find out what actual type of spinning oil it is, and I couldn't find anything. And I didn't do enough extensive research. So if you know what kind of oil it is that they put in for woolen spinning, woolen prepped, whatever, woolen spun yarn, please let me know. I'd love to know what actual oil this is. So on the website it says to, like, when you knit with it, if you are going to work with it, wear gloves and wear a mask. I have to confess I'm not. My word, I'm stumbling on my words. Okay, I am not wearing gloves. I'm not wearing a mask. When I do knit with it, my hands get to have this like tech feel on it, and it makes that sound when I rub my fingers together. But anyways, this yarn is Shetland, and it's woolen spun. It's 2-ply. It's easy to split splice. It's also very easy to break. And I'm holding it double in this knit. So I've just wound off with my hand. I could use my ball winder, but just sit and watch TV and wind onto my thumb. And the Ginny cardigan, as you can see, has some texture there. So those are knit 1, purl 1 rows. And then the next time you knit that row, you alternate it so that your knits aren't aligned. You're not having like this broken rib. It's the seed stitch, I think. And it's a raglan increasing. It was fun construction. This is going to have basically like it'll have a collar. I forget what type of collar it's called, but it folds over, I think, possibly. And I have no problems purling. The way that I do knit my purls, when I wrap my yarn around, my yarn doesn't go above the needle and down. I do a modified continental knitting where my finger comes forward and I bring the yarn up under the needle and up over the needle. So instead of wrapped over top, I'm wrapping under from to the top. It makes my knitting incredibly consistent when I'm doing back and forth knitting. So here's my swatch. This is a wool and spun yarn, so it's going to be appearing more consistent, but it's hard to tell that I was knitting back and forth. So this was knit back and forth as per described in the pattern, and I got gauge on the needles recommended, which are 4mm. I think 4mm needles. Yes, and I'm using my Chiagu. And so up until I split for sleeves, I was knitting back and forth, and my wrists, with the way that I knit purling and the weight of the fabric, it was getting a bit hard on my wrists. I already get numb hands, unfortunately, and working on that, the carpal tunnel stuff. So I've decided to steek, and I was going to go into this intending already to steek. So what I've done is I've added 5 stitches. So here's my beginning of round, and here's my beginning of the steek, and I've added 5 stitches. This is a woolen spun yarn. Steeking with woolen spun yarn, I have no issues with. I've done it many times, and I love it. There's something super thrilling about steeking your fabric. So the steek will happen on the middle stitch here. So there's 5, and this middle stitch here will get steeked up the middle of it. And now before I do that, I'm going to actually needle felt. So I've got this thing with like 5 needles, and you just go along this steek band, the whole length of it, and I'll dry needle felt, and that will just make the fibers hug each other even more for me to then go and snip snip. And then the fabric will just lay over on either side of the opening of the cardigan, and then I'll cast on for the hem. I think that's what it's called. Can't think of words, but yeah. So I've been working on this for a few weeks, a week, I don't remember, but I'm gonna love it. I wanted a cardigan that was cozy and lightweight, because this is woolen spun, and these cones are like 850 grams, including the center cone. So in the end, I think the website gives a calculation on how to estimate how much yards are on here, because you just don't know. So I did the calculation and was like, okay, I think I can do this, and if need be, I can always do the collar, that's what it is, in a different color, or I can be patient, maybe order another cone. They're very affordable. I can't remember how much I paid, but for a sweater's quantity, I think it was something like, I don't even remember. JC Rennie. You'll have to go check them out on their website. But it's very affordable, especially if you are living in Europe and you don't mind a greasy cone. My swatch I did scour, and I've got this. So what that means is I've got this soap specifically for removing lanolin or a grease of some sorts from your wool. So when I process fleeces, I have to remove the lanolin. And so this fabric has some nice stretch this way, not as much this way. So I know if I really want a little bit extra length, I'm going to have to knit some more rows. But for width and the gauge that I got, I'm going to be good with the size that I chose. I'm knitting size 5. My bust is about a 44, and I think, yeah, it's going to have 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. I didn't actually figure out how much positive ease I'm going to have, but I'm fairly hourglass shape, so it'll be fine. I never really have gauge issues, which is weird. Don't understand. There we go. my coney, my greasy cone Ginny cardigan. So if you'd like to knit the Ginny cardigan, please join. Yeah, here we are. I'm going to show you a few more things. It's all handspun related and a future project, and possibly if for some time I will show you a few books I will recommend. The last episode I was spinning this in my intro. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the color. This is a bat I received from Akara Yarns. Rose and I have a habit of trading fibers to spin, and so she sent me this and I spun it 2-ply. It's about, I didn't actually check, I think it's 14 reps per inch, so it's about a DK, and I didn't check the yardage, but looking at it, I'm gonna guess it's about 250 yards or more, maybe 270, and that's beautiful. And some future projects of handspun. I've shown these before, I think so. I think I showed Larry in the last episode. This is my own blended bat. You can listen to the last episode to find out more about this, but it's containing fleeces I have processed and some fiber I was gifted, and other Canadian fibers that I have sourced. And then this one here I spun from fiber that is blended by my friend Melissa. And then this one is a new spin. Basically, every time I create a bat on my carder, there's always leftover bits, usually second cuts, meaning the short bits of fiber that were cut off from the main locks from a fleece. And sometimes there's some color, there's bits of fiber that just you don't want to sell to somebody. So I keep it all and I create this, what I call a yarn pickle. I dye yarn pickles, meaning I dye yarns with leftover dyes, and I call it a yarn pickle in a pickle jar. And this one I'm just calling a fiber pickle to keep with the trend, I guess. So there is a ton of different fibers in here. Icelandic, alpaca, merino, silk, Navajo churro, herdwick, Gotland, BFL, silk. Did I say that? Probably Corriedale, Cheviot, Dorset, a ton, and it turned out really fun. So these are my like special rusticy yarns that I'm going to turn into something. I might hold off and accumulate a few more and maybe do like a faded sweater, or I have knit a lot of shawls in this last year, so I don't know, we'll see. There's plenty of time and wool can sit. We don't have moth issues here, so my wool is safe, completely safe. And then on another hand spun note, I've shown this yarn before, but I finally got the accompanying yarn to go with it. So this is my hand spun, this is 200 grams, and then this is my own other hand spun. So this fiber came from Artifacts of Appreciation. Lindsay is a genius with fiber blends, and this one's special. It also has some cashmere. I don't remember all of Targhee cashmere. I think there's Targhee, there's CVM, which is a really funny name if I dare you to look up what CVM is. Californian variegated mutant. It's an engineered sheep breed. And then this is my own blend of Corriedale, Jacob Shetland, merino silk. And I'm going to pair it with this Surrey alpaca. I used to dye Surrey alpaca, but it's a fiber I have to import. And I'm trying to source as local as I can. But anyways, I do love Surrey, and I'd be interested in bringing it back to my shop. I just haven't yet. This is from Comfy Cozy Knits, my dear friend Ashley. And this is her colorway Raven. And I really want to knit the Field Shawl by Max the Knitter. And so I spun for it. I just needed the Surrey. And so I asked Ashley if she would be interested in dyeing it for me. And so she said yes. So here we are. I have my yarn. I'm prepared. I just not ready to cast on yet, but that's a future cast on. So maybe next episode I'll have something to show you. Who knows? I'm super, super excited. It's going to be a lovely shawl, nice and dark. And if I don't get to it very soon, eventually I will. Oh my word. Stumbling on words. Yeah, so that is all the yarn and the finished objects, the works in progress that I wanted to share with you. And I had some book recommendations, which I will quickly show you. One is for very adventurous knitters, and one is for adventurous spinners, but also curious spinners wanting to know how to work with color. Specifically color dyed on fiber, which is then sent to you as a braid. Don't know why that had to be difficult. But anyways, we will start with the Adventurous Knitter book. This book I received, oh goodness, over a month ago. I just only recently got to look at Scandinavian sweaters for the purpose of wanting to find cardigans and sweaters and things that I could make that had a little more interest as far as techniques go, as well as steeking, because I love to knit cardigans and I don't knit them enough. I've knit a few and I've knit them for my children, and for kids I don't mind knitting cardigans back and forth, especially with the way that I knit. Purling is, I love to purl, but I recognize that I could have long-term injury if I keep going as I'm going. So I thought I would find some patterns that would involve some steeking, and I will show you a picture of a cardigan I would love to knit, which is this one. Isn't that beautiful? It's so beautiful. This is the Rounded Flowers Charcoal Gray. It is really, really lovely. The only thing that is a bit bummer about these kind of books is that they're not very size inclusive. So they go up to XXL, small to XXL, whatever that means. So a chest of 36 up to 48.5 inches. So that is one thing I will unfortunately mention here, is just it's not incredibly size inclusive. This is by Kristen. Maybe I can show it. There we are. That's who it is by. There's lots of really interesting yarn recommendations, probably Swedish yarns you might recognize, Norwegian, like Rauma or Finul Norwegian wool. Lots of those wools, which I think if you're living in Canada, you can source from Farm to Cable Yarns, maybe even Stash Lounge, I'm not sure. And at the back of the book, there's some pages to add your own notes. I don't know if I'll fill those up. There's acknowledgements, but there's also some interesting information about gauging, stranded color work. Like, it's not just a book with patterns, but there's also some really good information, especially about seaming, like mattress stitch. There was some interesting information about choosing the right knit yarn, and a really cool test you can do to figure out if your yarn would be suitable for the pattern. So you would take a needle and you'd poke a piece of paper, and then you'd take your yarn and see if the yarn fills the space. And if the yarn fills the space in that hole, then you can guesstimate that the yarn choice is good for that pattern. So yeah, that is that one. And then for the adventurous yarn spinners, these two books here. This is written by Rachel Smith and Katrina Stewart, who is the one who dyed this fiber, Crafty Jacks. I forgot to mention that. So they wrote this book called Unbraided. This has patterns in it. At the back, they have patterns for different types of hand spun yarns. But what I love about this book, and if you ask them enough. If there's enough people asking them, then they can reprint this. It's a very standard kind of paper book. It's not like yarny texture here with the hard covers, but it tells you how to, when you get this fiber, what to do with it and how to do it. So this gives examples of I think it's a traditional 1-ply single, 2-ply, center pole ball 2-ply, traditional 3-ply, chain ply, fractal 2-ply, fractal 3-ply. This is what I did for my handspun socks. Fractal 3-ply. And it's just color management with braids that you may receive. That's really good. This focuses a lot on just the color management. Whereas yarny texture, I haven't gone through the book. I'm using it quite like an encyclopedia. They give patterns as well, but they talk a lot about techniques in spinning, working with bats. So this is a bat that's been created, and you know, when you get a bat like this, what do you do with it? How do you spin from it? So this book is really good. I believe it's written by an American, and Jillian Moreno. She I think she was featured on Andrea Mowry's podcast recently. So yeah, those are the books that I wanted to recommend. Just looking around. I think I'm going to probably finish there. If you do want to keep an eye on other things that I'm working on, spinning, knitting, I often share things in my stories. But I wanted to show off some wonderful things here on the podcast and check in with you guys, see how you're doing. Yeah. New with my family. It's spring break here. My husband is out with my son, and my daughter goes to daycare, and we were trying to get Calvin into daycare with her, but the daycare didn't have any spots, and my husband right now is home because the house building company that we have is currently doing the drywall, or some places in the world call it gyprock, and it's behind me just what they put over the insulation and what you can paint. So they're installing the drywall, and John is home because his employees are also on holiday. So that's been nice to have him home. My kids had COVID. I remain an impenetrable wall. My husband had it before with my daughter, and Calvin and myself didn't get it, even though we were all in the same home. And then this last time, just Calvin and Sybil got probably the Omicron variant. And I would manifest symptoms. I was thinking, surely I must have it now, especially when your kids are all over you with their boogers and coughing on you and kissing you. But the kids were good. They had some fevers, some coughing, a little gastro stuff going on, but otherwise my husband isolated away from us because we had a house that was coming to closure in a sale, and he needed to be there with the lawyers and passing over the keys and whatnot. So yeah, so that's happened in the family. And then business wise, Crux Fibres, I'm dyeing yarn, keeping up stock, blending fiber, providing fiber when I can. I don't dye fiber. I don't particularly enjoy it. I really love making the blended bats, or processing fleeces and providing. I've just recently started providing little breed sample packs. So if you wanted to try some of Nora's fleece, Tansy twins, some Yukon wool or Yukon alpaca, I have some breed sample packs that I've been making. They can be ordered by pre-order, and all of my yarns are in stock and also dyed to order. So yeah, just keeping busy with that and keeping up to date on the news around the world, which is really at times discouraging, makes me feel angry, but at the same time I'm just filled with so much hope, because I just know people are better than they have been. I know we can be better, and so just trusting trusting in the world. Yeah, so I think other than that, it's an overcast day today, which is actually kind of a good day to film. It's not too bright. And trying to think of what's happening in the Yukon or what's coming up for me. I'm just continuing to keep busy with my business and the kids at home when they are. And then I'm preparing to go to the Peace Fibre Festival in Dawson Creek, British Columbia. It's going to be a long drive, and that's April 24th, the day of the event. And so I will be driving down, hopefully with my husband, John, and then the kids will stay behind with his parents. So that might be a nice little getaway for us to, we haven't had a getaway with each other for a long time. And a road trip would be wonderful. The Alaska Highway heading down to British Columbia is really scenic. And we can stop in at Liard Hot Springs, which is a natural hot springs in BC. So we could stop there. That'd be fun. Yeah. A bit of exciting news was that today I was watching The Grocery Girls, and I knew I sent out a package to a Tracy, and I was like, possibly it's her, but I don't know. And so at the end of their live podcast, they showed my yarn, and I was like, how sweet. So I was kind of gushing over that. I was in the garage dyeing yarn and I watched and I squealed, and John was saying, congrats, babe. So a bit of some fangirl news that was fun. So yeah. I feel like I must be missing things. Yeah, the things that I wanted to mainly make sure happened were that giveaway for Heather Grant, and the 100 days of yarn walking. I love it. My friend Heather did this other challenge last year about wearing wool dresses, and that was really cool, and she just wanted another challenge, and I said, I'll join you, and I'll see if I can get others to join as well. So there's a lot of knit-alongs, make-alongs, and I was like, what about a different type of challenge where it's just craft your heart out, but get outside and move, or just move your body. So I think some people have been interested in that idea. And yeah, so there you go. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe if you feel like it. Share with your friends if you want to. I would really love, I'd really appreciate that. If you've enjoyed your time with me, I hope to see you again next time. And if you have questions or you'd like to know more about myself, my family, my business, things like that, drop your comments below, and I'll see if I can answer questions in the comments or on the next episode. Today I put on some lipstick. That's the extent of makeup that I'll wear. And I groomed my hair a little bit. Felt like a good day to do that. So, and as I continue to stumble on my words, I think that's probably time to say goodbye. So, stay well. Remember that your heart is so much more full of love than you think it has. And without grace, there is no hope. So have grace for one another so that there is hope and we can move forward. All right. Bye.